Unprecedented tyranny is upon us. Unprecedented lying is upon us. We're in deep trouble. And some people say, well, that's negative. No, the realization that we're in a lot of trouble is what's going to haul our bacon. Okay, it's time to get out of the trance. It's time to get angry. It's time to get awake. But I saw a Piers Morgan interview a few weeks ago. I was already trying to get the sheriff on when he went on Piers Morgan. Sheriff David Clarke, many of you have heard the ad that he ran saying, look, I need you to be on the team here. All over the country, they're having police layoffs, sheriff's department layoffs. Some areas they've laid off more than half. We saw 2 years ago the police department in Oakland, where they have draconian gun laws, said we're not going to respond to 35 crimes. Some of them, that dealt with armed robbery and stuff, really bizarre. And then wonder why their crime only exploded. I mean, even if they're going to not respond, surely don't announce it. So the fact that Sheriff David Clarke said, look, you need to go out and get firearms, but more importantly, training. Everyone needs training, and it's available. It's easy. Do not just go buy a gun, folks, and then just think you're protected. Learn how to use it. Because I'm all for the Second Amendment, but you need to learn how to use it so you don't learn what type of stuff to use in your house. But we'll talk about that after he leaves us. You need flangeable stuff, sheer safety slugs, shotgun shells shooting like number 6, number 7, so you don't kill people on the other side. That's why there's some basic training needed here. And then once you go out and shoot a gun, it demystifies it. Go buy a gun, then go to a shooting range, go pay to have a trainer train you. Learn the basics, learn the safety. And that will promote a Second Amendment culture, a constitutional culture. But I was really impressed when the sheriff was on Piers Morgan, the lies of Piers Morgan and the lies of the mayor, and I'll call Tom Barrett a liar, saying, well, the sheriff's department doesn't respond to crime. And I knew all sheriff's departments do. I mean, in many areas, there's more people living in the county than the city. But I went and just typed in Milwaukee County, hit Google News, and saw articles of sheriffs responding to home invasions, responding to a guy beating his wife and knocking her teeth out, responding to a robbery. It was just a feed of articles. Milwaukee Sheriff's Department responds. Total lie. Going, you can't talk about needing more police, more sheriffs. You don't. So we're going to get into that as well. But first, if you just joined us, we haven't aired this in a few weeks. Here is the little short 30-second radio ad that the sheriff put out saying, hey, let's kick crime in the butt like Kennesaw, Georgia. They said you had to own a gun by law. I don't think that's constitutional, but the Swiss do it. And their crime rate dropped by 89% within 2 years. And, boy, they flipped out. Because if this is real common sense, let's go to that clip.
I'm Sheriff David Clarke, and I want to talk to you about something personal, your safety. It's no longer a spectator sport. I need you in the game. But are you ready? With officers laid off and furloughed, simply calling 911 and waiting is no longer your best option. You can beg for mercy from a violent criminal, hide under the bed, or you can fight back. But are you prepared? Consider taking a certified safety course in handling a firearm so you can defend yourself until we get there. You have a duty to protect yourself and your family. We're partners now. Can I count on you?
This safety message brought to you by the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, and we're going to show you some of the graphics if you're watching on TV. For radio listeners, go to FBI.gov, and people say, well, if you don't believe the government, why would you use theirs? Worldwide, statisticians use these numbers because they've been getting them since J. Edgar Hoover was a filing clerk in the 30s. Their local numbers compiled, cross-referenced, and checked because it's disseminated. Just since 2007, it's a 21% drop. It is a 49% drop since 1991. 49% drop, and we've done countless special reports on that. So that's why I guess the sheriff's saying buy guns, protect yourself. Sheriff David Clarke, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for being an example of a real peace officer instead of one of these government types that's there to demonize the Bill of Rights. Thank you for defending the Constitution, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on with you, and it's a pleasure to serve. I'm independently elected, as you indicated, sheriffs are. So we serve the people. I don't report to another bureaucrat or another political official like a police chief. Really works for the mayor. I work for the people. I'm accountable to the people, the voters. And what I've always done since I've been the sheriff, it's been 10 years now, is I give people unvarnished information. I just lay it out for them. Don't sugarcoat it. Say, hey, here's the reality. Here's what's going on, so that people that an armed citizen is nothing for me to worry about. What I'm worried about is a felon or another criminal who has demonstrated that they'll use a firearm to commit a crime. I'm more worried about individuals like that.
Let's get into what Piers Morgan wouldn't let you talk about. You kept trying to say why you had said it's time for people to go get firearms training and protect themselves. What's going on in Milwaukee County and in the city itself?
Well, there's been a recent increase, a surge, if you will, and it's not just an anomaly of some street violence where innocent people are getting caught in crossfire. They're getting guns stuck to their heads, their wallets taken, their cars taken. Street robberies, and then we've had homes. There's a rash of burglaries going on in the Milwaukee area, 300 in the month of August alone. And, you know, I looked at that, and then I saw that Mayor Barrett was furloughing 1,500 Milwaukee police officers 3 days each for 2013. That means 4,500 fewer officer days to answer 911 calls for service. They're inundated. They're drowning in 911 calls, the street cops. Not the fault of the cops, it's just not given the resources. And then also the county executive, Chris Abele, laid off 48 sheriff's deputies in my office last year, tried to lay off some more before. And so I look at that and I said, you know, there's an emerging situation here that people have always had the right to do. And I talk about in the ad personal security. That's an individual responsibility. I don't get to say how and when a person should defend themselves in these situations, and in the case of their home being broken into, and I refer to it as, you know, when the wolf's at the door, 911 is not going to help you. The ad doesn't say don't call 911. You heard it. It says that might not be your best option, and in many of these instances that I just described, it doesn't. Now, Barrett and Abele, and even Police Chief Ed Flynn, they basically communicated to the law-abiding people of Milwaukee County that you're on your own. We're not going to provide the resources for the police to do everything that they can to create a safe environment. Citizens, you're on your own. We're abandoning you. And I thought, well, this is as fundamental a concept as we have in America, the concept of self-defense. And I thought there's two things that went on over the last 18 months in Wisconsin, where the legislature empowered individuals to deal with these situations, not to go out and police the streets, but in terms of personal security. One is castle doctrine, where now if an intruder breaks into your home, you can use force up to and including deadly force to ward off that attack, to protect you, your children, whatever. And the onus is on the criminal now to explain why he was in your house, whereas before castle doctrine, you had to explain, the homeowner had to explain why it was reasonable to use deadly force. The other thing is the Personal Protection Act, which allows people to go out and get a permit, and there's a process, and then they can go armed with a concealed weapon. So I'm trying to leverage those two things to get people in these that are stuck in these situations, and that's what it is when somebody comes up and sticks a gun into your back or against your head and demands your wallet or your car. You're in a situation where 911 is not going to help. And I don't tell, if you notice, I don't tell people what to do. I say, here's some things you need to think about, because the time to plan and to decide what your options are is not when the event is happening. It's beforehand. And if that's going to mean that you're going to exercise your Second Amendment right to own and possess and use a firearm, well, you need to think about the training, the safety measures. I mean, anything that is in the hands of the wrong person is dangerous. A chainsaw in the hands of somebody who's never used one, that's dangerous. So I would expect people to read the manual, so on and so forth. And that's what I'm advising, as it comes to firearms.
Well, it's common sense. What would you say to the Chicago police chief who's now come out and said, just ban the Second Amendment? It's the problem. They've taken the guns there. All the criminals then move there and feed on the people. I mean, they've got to know that where you take the guns, it has the highest crime rate. Where you have more guns in the citizens' hands, you have lower crime rate. They're not that stupid, Sheriff Clarke. So what's this really all about then?
Well, this is really about freedom. It's really about liberty, and that's why I mentioned empowering citizens. I trust citizens to make those decisions in their lives, and their personal security, and their personal safety. And apparently, and I didn't hear, what I'm trying to do here is give people advice up front to consider these things, to have a plan in place should that happen to them, and then they got to decide. It's not for me. Like I said in the ad, you can hide under the bed, you can beg for mercy from a violent criminal. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. Maybe that's the best thing in that situation, but it's not for me to say. So I want to make sure that the people of Milwaukee County and the 155,000 people who have applied for these personal protection permits, and that was in the first year alone, I want them on my side, and we're going to be partners in this thing. And if you're going to be partners with me, then you have to be prepared. Now, we had an interesting situation several summers ago where the mayor, Tom Barrett, was out without his protective bubble. He gets taxpayer paid for armed security staff, police officers, and he should have that. I don't want to take that away from him, but he lives life in a bubble. And he stepped outside that bubble several summers ago, and he was walking down the street with his family, and he intervened in a domestic dispute. And a guy who was involved in that dispute grabbed a tire iron and beat the mayor mercilessly within inches of his life. I mean, it was a severe beating. And I would like to think, 911 didn't help the mayor that day, and he didn't have that protective bubble. But since that happened,
if I was a mayor, guaranteed I'd be wearing a gun on my hip and a fanny pack. I mean, exactly. He's an idiot. I mean, you're going to try to intervene in the most dangerous situation, a domestic event, and you're not going to be armed? I mean, he deserved it almost.
Well, that's how clueless this individual is. And so I would like to think that he'd be a little more sensitive to the plight of everyday Americans and citizens living in the Milwaukee area who have to live with these threats and this violence on a day-to-day basis, and they don't have the bubble of protection that he has. And instead of him being a little more sensitive because he now experienced what real life is like outside that bubble, he still wants to take this availability away from law-abiding citizens, and I think it's ridiculous. I think it's terrible.
It is crazy. And again, I'm sad he got beaten with an inch of his life, but not being armed and then trying to get involved in something dangerous, that's like playing in traffic. And we do see these big urban centers are the only areas where crime is going up, where you don't tend to have people armed just because, I guess, culturally, across racial lines as well, people in big cities, for whatever reason, a lot of times don't think they need guns. I guarantee you, if I lived in a big, dangerous city, I would have guns even more readily at hand. Living out in the
Well, as you indicated early on in this conversation, the Constitution, and I tell people, the Second Amendment to me is as sacred as the First Amendment. I think they go hand in hand. And, we've already, and I know they're not absolute. The Second Amendment is not absolute, neither is the First. But we've shaved enough off the Second Amendment with some of these gun control measures, many of them that didn't work, but we've shaved enough. And the essence of the Second Amendment, it says in part, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I think we've infringed enough on law-abiding people to be able to keep and bear arms for whatever reason. I realize that has to do with tyrannical government, but at the same time, the concept of self-defense in this country, in the United States of America, is very fundamental. And I want to use that. I'm not afraid of a law-abiding citizen with a handgun. And I'll say it again. I'm afraid of a criminal perpetrator because they've demonstrated time and time again they will use that instrumentality to commit a crime.
Well, what about the mayor's spin that, criminals can get all these handguns? He put up this 40% number. From the statistics I've seen and what you've tried to talk about, that's not a real number.
It's not a real number at all. He knows that President Obama used the same thing in his speech on. And if you notice how they changed the language, they don't call it gun control because they know that doesn't poll well, and that even people who don't own guns don't like the thought of banning everybody from possessing a firearm. But they're using data that's patently false. Now, Tom Barrett went on CNN with Piers Morgan and said 40% of handgun sales in the United States occur without a background check. That is a patent lie. That is patently false. He's using some statistics, some research that was flawed on its face from 1997, where 200 people were polled. There's 300 million people in the United States. It's not even a statistically legitimate sample pool to poll 250 people and come out with something that would stand a plus or minus, they always put in the
sure. But my argument is this: criminals are always going to get guns. Mexico has a total gun ban, and they have the highest crime rate in the world next to a city like Chicago. It's the highest city, but as a country, Mexico, almost 60,000 deaths. In fact, I think it's over that now in the last 5.5 years. And they've taken the guns. Only the criminals have the guns, and a corrupt government bought off by the criminals. I mean, you take the guns in Chicago, Al Capone's still going to have them. What about this issue? Many sheriffs have said, Sheriff Clarke, that if executive orders come down banning semi-autos or whatever, or in New York, they've banned them. They've banned the clips. They're saying turn them in. They've got bills in Missouri that actually say all semi-autos will be turned in. Democratic Party is crazily behind that. Washington State, same bill. 15 states total. Seriously, if they try to physically take semi-autos, I know a lot of veterans and people that have had enough, and I would not want to be the police or sheriff's department ordered by the feds to try to go get guns. What is your take on the fact that, from a lot of analysts I talk to, think that the Obama Marxist types want to start a civil war in this country? I mean, they've got to know what's going to happen if they try to confiscate guns.
Well, first of all, to me, that would be an act of tyranny. So the people of Milwaukee County do not have to worry about me enforcing some sort of order that goes out and collects everybody's handgun or rifles or any kind of firearm and makes them turn them in. And the reason is I don't want to get shot, because I believe that if somebody tried to enforce something of that magnitude, you would see the second coming of an American Revolution, like the likes of which would make the first revolution pale by comparison. So the people in Milwaukee County don't have to worry about me engaging in that sort of tyranny.
You're absolutely right. This country is primed. People have been abused in so many ways. Obama said they're bitter clingers, their guns, their Bibles. We've been deindustrialized. We've had our future sold out. We've been signed on to the banker's debt. And I'm telling you, certain elements of the feds, not the average Fed, because I've talked to a lot of them, are really pushing and really like the junkyard bully, the junkyard dog, or the schoolyard bully. They really want to get this thing going. And I don't think they realize the restraint of the American people is not out of weakness. It's out of good old-fashioned restraint.
Well, first of all, this doesn't have, as you know, this has nothing to do with violence reduction, because the type of violence that we're talking about, that I see on the street in the Milwaukee area on a daily basis, is not even committed using the weapons that the left is trying to ban. They're not using assault rifles. They're not using high-capacity magazines. They're not buying their ammo over the Internet, and they don't care. The criminals could care less about a background check. So, that tells me that they're disingenuous in what they're trying to do. If they were serious about violence reduction, they would get behind me. I'm talking about the left here in Milwaukee County, and join me arm in arm in calling for longer periods of incarceration for repeat career criminals who have demonstrated over and over again that they're going to get a handgun, they're going to get a firearm, and they're going to perpetrate violence. Now, we had a temple shooting, the Sikh temple, several months ago here. Very tragic situation in a suburb in Milwaukee County, Oak Creek. That individual, Michael Wade Phillips, I believe his name is, he passed a background check. My understanding is the creep in Aurora, Colorado that shot up the theater, he also passed a background check. This isn't about background check, of which the overwhelming majority of gun transfers, it goes on anyway. Michael Wade Page, I think I mixed the name up. This isn't about reducing violence. This is about attacking the Second Amendment. This is going after the wrong crowd.
Exactly. Let me ask you this question: Why does the government class, the socialist class, why do they want our guns so bad right now? What are they worried about in the future?
Well, I don't want to get way out there and try to guess at what they're getting at, but really, government control cannot go on as long as people have some sort of ability to say, hey, wait just a doggone minute. And as long as that exists, the government, that's what the government fears. They don't really fear the criminal. They support the criminal after they've been arrested. But what they fear is a law-abiding person.
That's right.
Who going to look. I mean, read the Declaration of Independence. It's right there where law-abiding people say, enough is enough. You're exerting too much influence in our lives. This is tyrannical, and we're going to stop it.
Wow,
That's
Sheriff,
what they're worried about.
Sheriff David A. Clarke there in Milwaukee. Folks should support him. 5 seconds left. I bet the public loves your stand.
You know, it's received overwhelming support. It really has.